A blanket, any cushion would work, a yoga strap, and some blocks. You don't have to have this many. I just put them on all sides of the mat to have them available. So please take a moment to make yourself comfortable. And perhaps that is a cross-legged seat. You're welcome to sit in a chair if cross-legged isn't on the menu today. So just take a few moments, settling in, and we may rest with palms face up. Take a deep inhale in through the nose, sighing it out, releasing, arriving, welcoming yourself. Noticing the shape change with this inhale and this exhale. Consider spinning palms to face down, looking to the left, and I'm mirroring, which means I'm going to move opposite what I'm suggesting. So we'll turn the head perhaps to the left, noticing how the neck is feeling. We might bring a nod into the head. We might be tilting, leaning the head a little bit back. These are just possibilities. You're always calibrating for what feels right for your body in this moment. So we may be bringing nose tip back to center. We might position a prop over to the left. We may turn the nose tip to the left and let that left hand land. Just creating a little lean, sinking towards the left. Notice the response of the right side body. And we might even take a hand up onto the ribs and just glide the hand up and down. And we might find a rib or two and then locate a little soft tissue between the ribs. We're not trying to tickle ourselves, but you might just find an area where we do a little bit of self-massage, and you can move up or down. You can use your thumb or your fingers. You might move around to the back. Let's slide ourselves back in a little closer. We're back to midline. And maybe move your prop to the second side. Let the head, the nose tip turn to the right. And this doesn't have to be your full range of motion. So we may just turn the head and notice how this side feels. Maybe there's a little more tension, a little less tension. The range of motion may feel a little different. So without forcing anything, when you're ready, find that prop and let that right hand land on the prop. So we're creating that little bit of lean. Full breath, nose tip, perhaps over to that side. But I know we want to watch the screen, right? So just listen to your body, and when you think of it, let that nose tip move back over towards right shoulder, and we may bring the left hand up, and maybe your fingers go immediately to a spot. You might be drawn to a spot, and if you're just joining us, you're just sliding your fingers down the ribs, and you're looking for a little area for palpation. And again, we're not trying to tickle ourselves. You could go forward, but maybe you're using your knuckles and moving more around the back. Let's bring ourselves back to the middle, and we may just find a little glide of the ribs side to side. It does not have to be a large movement. And we may invite some shoulder rolls along with head and neck movement. Let's pause with the shoulder rolls, go the other way, second direction. And we'll again lay on that left hand, perhaps on a prop, maybe on the ground. The right arm may be rising. Now we might just take the arm up in the air. Hello shoulder, hello side ribs. We might bring the hand back down and leave it there. So these are possibilities. We may reach the arm up and over. We might be enhancing that side bend, maybe bending the elbow, extending the elbow. And we'll slowly rise back up, resting at center. Let the eyes rest. Perhaps thumbprints and index fingers connect. Let the body sigh. As you feel ready, second side. So we might be placing that right hand, and we may just lean again. We might go for that little bit of self massage. Perhaps we reach the arm up and over, say hello, let that arm come back down. We may bring the arm up and over, perhaps we linger. We may bend the elbow. We may extend the arm. Check in with this shoulder, this side body. It may be very different. And we'll find our way all the way back to the middle, resting palms face up, index fingerprints, thumbprints very gently connecting. Exploring the shape change with each breath cycle. And let's rock on back, trading cross of the legs if the legs are crossed. While the rock sits bones back. We may be connecting the palms, rubbing the hands together. And let's bring a little movement into the wrist. So let the wrist swirl as we bring the hands around one another. Go the other way, second direction. And then bring some movement into the elbows. Let those elbows mobilize. Go the other way. Feel free to circle the wrist with the elbow movement. Let's reach the left arm up in the air. Turn, look to the left, possibly moving fingers. Let the left arm drop. Second side when you feel ready. Right arm rising, chin may move to the right, releasing down. Weaving the hands together. Try to put that second favorite thumb on top. We'll just get that one right out of the way. Usually feels a bit peculiar. So we'll press those palms down, rebend, reach the hands forward, rebend. Take the arms overhead. Maybe we're shifting the ribs a little side to side. One shoulder, one side body might feel a bit more snug than the other. Bend one elbow. Reach up to the heel of the opposite hand. Trade sides. Let's reach up through both hands. And as we exhale, turning, twisting over to the right, your right side. We might find a little movement in the head. Remember, we can nod in more than one direction. Inhale, we'll bring it back to center. And as we exhale, rotating, twisting, second side. Sussing in with the neck. Let the body sigh. Let's gather back to center. Weave the fingers together again, this time with that second thumb on top. So just notice which one is the second thumb there. And trade the grip to be behind the back. Roll the shoulders back. Keep as much bend in the elbows as you prefer. We might start to extend those elbows closer to straight behind the back, just a possibility. The pinky sides of the hands may lift towards the ceiling. Release the arms down. We may just shift it out, roll it out through the shoulders. So if you like, grab a couple of blocks or anything to support your ascent. So we're coming to stand. We might rock back and maybe we don't put the blocks down, but maybe we do. So we might drop the feet, press the hands down into the blocks and rise up to stand. So just clear the path for your forward bend. Unwind the legs, unwrap the legs, tipping them. Hands could be on props. Hands may come to the ground. We may be deeply bending the knees, shifting the hips a little bit, side to side. We may circle the head. We may nod the head. Consider stretching the jaw. Let the lips move back towards one another, bending the knees. Take your time. Transition forearms onto the thighs, just above the knees. Drop the hips lower. Drop them lower still. Root to rise. We'll bring ourselves all the way up to stand. Shift out anything that needs it. Feel free to use a wall if you like. Slide one foot out to the side or back, whichever feels best for your body. Give yourself room to circle your ankle, circle second direction. And then second foot. So maybe trade sides with the wall. And again, you might prefer to go backwards or out to the side. Circle, circle the other way. let the foot land. Spin both palms to face forward, check the feet. Maybe one foot is turning out, maybe we're bending a knee, cocking a hip out to the side. Have all the toes face forward, palms face forward. Circle the arms up, the gaze may rise. Exhale, forward fold. So please take as much time as you like. Keep that right foot forward, reach the left leg back. So as we reach that left leg back, create a little rock through the toes. Shifting back through the heel, forward through the heel. Let the hips rise up and take a few moments to tap, tap, navigate left foot alongside the right, looking out. And exhaling chest to thighs. So this time, let's rise halfway up. Look for length and consider walking both hands over to the right. So the blocks can be extension of the arms. Bend that right knee. Roll the left hip back. Let's navigate back to center. Look for a little bit of length. Keep that left foot forward. Reach that right leg back. So wiggle back as much as you like, shifting forward and back through the heel, getting into the toes. Getting into the front of that right thigh. Lift the hips a little higher. Tap, tap, navigate right foot forward, looking out. Exhaling, chest towards thighs. As you feel ready, rise halfway up. Starting to walk the hands over to the left. So we're bending that left knee. We're rolling the right hip back. We may nod the head. Now let's navigate, bring it back to center, look up and lengthen, and this time drop both hands, walk on back, find our down face dog position. Pedaling through the feet, getting into the backs of the lower legs. Take that dog for a stroll for as long as you like. Pivot the heels out, engage the thighs, tip the sits bones back. Let's glide on forward into a high plank position, perhaps shifting forward, back, land the knees. Let's slide all the way down to the belly. Adjust the elbows under the shoulders, starting to rise part way up. So we're creating a little lean side to side. Take it as slowly as you like. Maybe we've been sitting for a while, the front body may feel a little snug. Next time you lean to the right, bend the left knee, and we might find a little wobble through that left leg. Releasing, create a little side bend over towards the left, bending right knee. We might find a little motion. Releasing. Let's come all the way down, touch the brow to the ground, lift the heart, rolling up into a cobra, pressing hips back towards heels, child's pose. Let the body sigh. We may creep the fingers a little further forward. So take all the time you like. Feel free to bend the elbows if that's a better variation for you right now. And then let's rise just part way up, and start to walk both hands over to the right. So the forehead might come down to the floor or onto a prop as we again lengthen the left side body. And let's bring the hands back to the middle, rise up, and then walk the hands over to the left to that second side. So we might be lifting left ribs up and over left thigh, leaning right ribs, right hip more to the right. Let's bring the hands back to center. Consider knee padding if you like, rounding up into a cat pose. We may navigate right hand further forward, left hand further forward as we drop into a more neutral position. Sitting back like we're going to come into child's pose, but slide that right hand back and then let that right arm rise. Think of a wave rolling onto the shore. Let that right hand be the wave. It crashes down onto the sand. The hips are sitting back. And we'll take that wave up and over. As we slide back this time, trade to that left side. The left arm rises, reaches forward. We're sliding, drawing it back. One more round. Let's drop back into child's pose. Wrap the belly muscles in. Start to rise up into cat. Tuck the toes. Pitch the hips back towards the heels. So this can be a lot of stretch in the toes, but we might just be noticing in the big toes. So try to roll towards the little toe sides of the feet. You're pressing the outer ankles towards the long edges of the mat to involve the smaller toes. Rise back up to center, let the knees hover, send left heel down, pivot right knee to the left. And we might find a little wobble rock of that right leg. Press right heel to the ground as the left knee rises. Left knee moves over to the right. We're wobbling that knee. And then just take a walk. Leisurely walk your feet all the way up to the top short edge of the mat. Consider the blocks. Rise halfway up. Put as much bend as you like in your knees. Take as much time as you need to rise up without getting dizzy. As we bring the arms up in the air, let's tip, lean, side bend towards the right. Inhale back to the middle. Exhale, tip, lean, side bend left. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, forward fold. Let that right foot remain forward. Reach the left leg back. Option to drop that back knee down. Feel free to keep that back knee elevated. We might slide that left hand wider to the left. And if you check out the left fingers, are they pointing forward towards 12 o'clock? Maybe you're more comfortable somewhere between 11 and 9 o'clock. Let that right arm rise up. Perhaps the back knee rises, finding our lunge twist. Let the hips rise. Release that right hand down to the ground. Step it back, down face dog. Pedaling up through the feet. Slide on forward into high plank. Option to release to the knees at any point. Lower, 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 down to the belly. Pointing feet. Planting hands, heart rising. We might give a little rock. Let's release back to the ground. Find Sphinx position with the elbows, bending right knee. So checking in with the low back, with that right knee. You do not have to go anywhere else. We might line that left forearm up with the top short edge of the mat. Maybe we reach back for the right foot with the right hand and point the elbow up to the ceiling, rolling the head of the right shoulder forward. Chin, nose tip might move down towards the middle of the mat. That right heel may be hugging closer towards right hip. And then releasing. So let's plant the hands, heart rising, move back towards child's pose, tucking toes, lifting hips, down face dog. Left foot closer to the right foot, right leg may rise, perhaps dropping left heel, perhaps bending right knee. Roll that right knee into the chest, step right foot forward between the hands, left leg rises, knee bends, left foot lands alongside the right, looking out. Exhale, chest to thighs. Let's rise halfway up. You're welcome to use those blocks. Reach the right foot back. You're welcome to put that back knee, right knee on the ground. Right hand moves wider to the right. Noticing where is it most comfortable for your wrist to turn the fingers? 12 o'clock, somewhere between 12 and 3. We may be reaching that left arm high. We may be raising that back knee, that right knee off the ground as we find our twist. Rolling left hip back. Let the hips rise. Cycle that left hand down to the ground. We'll plant the hands, slide on back, step on back into down face dog. Gliding forward into that high plank. Lay on the knees, slide to the belly. Point the feet, hands plant, heart rising, cobra. Rolling back down to the ground. Line the elbows up under the shoulders, find Sphinx. We might find those little shifts side to side, bending left knee. Check in with the belly, the knee, the low back. We do not have to go anywhere else. We may line right forearm up with the top short edge of the mat. Peering over left shoulder, we may grab the top of that left foot, perhaps hug the foot closer to the hip. And let's release foot back down to the ground. Plant the hands. Roll back towards child's pose, tucking toes, lifting hips, down face dog. Sliding right foot closer to the left, left leg rising, perhaps right heel dropping, perhaps left knee bending. Draw that left knee into the chest, step left foot forward between the hands. Feel free to grab those blocks. Right leg may rise, knee may bend, navigating right foot alongside the left, looking out, and exhale, chest to thighs. Let's inhale, rise halfway up. Drop the knees. As you feel ready, cycle the arms up and overhead. Thumbs to forehead, thumbs to heart. Perhaps grabbing a block, put it between the upper and the thighs, feet parallel, start to sink the hips. So we're sliding the hips back like we're going to sit on a low stool. Power person pose, hands on hips. Listen to your shoulders. We may raise the arms with bend in the elbows. We might extend the arms. Exhale, forward fold. So as we let the hands come down to the ground, reach up, find your block, slide it out of the way. Let's keep right foot forward, reach that left leg back. We may find blocks and extend the front leg, bend the knee. We may repeat that a few times depending on how the back of that front leg is feeling. If and when you feel ready, holding with a straight or straightish right leg. Let the neck lengthen. And then as we rise up, start to bend back into that front knee. Now, perhaps we lift the back heel up. Maybe we keep that left heel pivoting towards the right long edge of the mat. Transition hands to thigh, hands to hips. The arms may rise. We may drop hands to hips, roll the elbows back. We may weave the hands together, rolling elbows back, extend the arms, sliding right ribs inside right thigh with bound arms moving up and overhead. Keep leaning that left hip towards the left long edge of the mat to help with balance. Rebend the elbows. Consider planting the hands, stepping back, down face dog, shift it out. Let's peel the heels up, land on the knees. So this might be a nice place to double up your mat or just grab some knee padding. So left foot, swing your left foot out to the left, toes pointed or toes tucked. Look at the left fingers. They point at 12 o'clock or somewhere between 9 and 12. And extend the right leg. Right toes face the long right edge of the mat. Right hand could stay low. It may find the hip. We might reach straight up. Or if it feels even better, take that arm up and overhead with or without elbow bend. Let's cycle, right hand back down to the ground. Swing left foot around, right heel's pointing up to the ceiling. So remembering we always have options. Let's drop the knee, sit on back. Feel free to grab a block, maybe 2 blocks, sit up a little bit higher. If kneeling doesn't work for you, sit in any way that does. So we may have just had more load, more weight bearing on that left hand. And we might do a little more. So just give that wrist, forearm, any attention it may need in this moment. And then consider sliding forward, back into your dog. Left foot closer to the right, right leg rising, left heel may drop. Same thing we did before. We might be bending right knee, rolling hips open. We may draw that right knee into the chest, step right foot forward, left leg rising. Here's where we're gonna add on. So we may bend both knees and tap that left knee behind the right calf, that curtsy lunge. We may lift left leg high, and perhaps we touch the right toes down, let the leg rise. Perhaps we reach the left toes really far to the right and just hold it for a moment, keep breathing. Feel the fun stuff in that outer right leg. Let the leg rise, and then step the left foot alongside the right, tipping in. We may give the head a little nod, a little circle nod. So we'll cycle into that other side, but before we do, let's rise halfway up and consider bending the knees. Remember holding the block between the thighs. Squeeze a pretend block. At the same time, press the outer thighs out. Let the arms rise, and let's bring hands to the hips. Shift weight left. Feel free to put your left hand on the wall. Right leg rises. Right ankle may land on top of left leg. We might even hold right foot, right knee, sitting on that pretend stool. Let's rise back up, re-extend, re-bend, drop the foot, sink the hips. The arms may rise, feel free to keep bending the elbows, slide the ribs back. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, rise halfway up. So let's reach that right leg back. Take your time. We might take a moment and bend and extend, bend and extend. So just listen to your body. We may find the place where we're holding that left leg closer to straight. Right heel perhaps pivoting to the right. And let's bend back into that front leg. Do you like the distance between the legs? Do you need a little more space? Back heel lifting, back heel maybe pivoting to the left. Hands may make their way up the thigh. They may land on the hips. They may rise along with the gaze. Roll the pinkies in. Hands back to the hips, elbows back. Maybe we're remembering to swap the cross of the thumbs. We might extend the arms and slide left ribs inside left thigh. Lean that right hip, outer right thigh to the right. We bend the elbows. Let's plant the hands. Stepping back, find that down face dog position, and we may pedal it out, shifting it out. I'm going to spin around. Please don't feel like you have to do that. You're welcome to stay exactly where you're at. So let's land down on the knees. Swing right foot out to the right, toes pointed or tucked. Left leg long, toes point to the long left edge of the mat. Check the right fingers. Left hand stays on the ground, the hip overhead. Maybe overhead the other way, so palm faces the ground. Perhaps we're bending that top elbow. And cycling that top hand back to the ground. Let's find hands and knees, tuck the toes. Let the hips rise, right foot closer to the left, left leg rising. Right heel may drop. That top knee may be bending. Draw the knee into the chest. Step the left foot forward. Right leg rises. Both knees bend. Right knee may tap behind left lower leg. Toes may hover. They may come all the way down. Let the leg rise. And repeat. Maybe you go lower on the leg. Maybe we reach the foot a little further. And that third time we'll hold. So that might be a little wider curtsy lunge position. And let's rise all the way up, rebend, release the foot, let that foot come back to the ground.
And hopefully if you found that right wrist wanted any attention, you took a moment for it. But just in case, we might spin both palms face up under the feet. So the weight of the feet, the toes, we can self-massage into the palm of the hand. The head may be nodding. The hips may be shifting a little side to side. Let's tempt those fingers forward, rebend the knees. So you're finding your imaginary block between the thighs, hug those inner thighs in. Hands might just gradually come up. We may reach them all the way up, bring the hands to the hips, shift weight right, cross left ankle on top of right thigh, and we may hold that figure 4 sit. As you feel ready, rising up, perhaps extend the leg, rebend, release, shifting it out. So let me give you options. If the hands aren't letting a lot of load on the ground, feel free to come to a wall, and we can all try this. You can even use a pretend wall. So I'll do pretend wall first, then real wall. So right hand, we might extend the arm out like we're stopping traffic, and we'll call that fingertips pointing to 12. Then let your fingertips dial backwards. We'll say towards that 3 o'clock position. Maybe we want to bend the elbow and re-extend. Bend, maybe even draw the fingers in and re-extend, depending on how things are feeling. So if you're right hand dominant, this is your mousing side, maybe it was your weekend lawn care hand side, it might be really intense in that forearm. You may not want to go anywhere else. Possibly pretend that right hand is rooted to a wall. Take a baby step forward. Remember your hands on a wall, even if it isn't. Ooh, that might turn it up plenty. If we want more, we might pivot the toes and the hips to the left. You can let the chin travel with the rotation of your hips. We'll bring it back to center, release the hand down, and then we'll trade sides. So I'll put my hand on the wall for this side. So you want your wrists level with the shoulder, fingertips point up, fingertips might start to dial back. Now, if you're using a real wall this time, it might feel very, very different. Maybe we don't wind up taking the fingers as far back. And maybe that feels great, just fine. Maybe it's a little tight, a little intense, so we bend and extend. Bend and extend. If we want a little more, we might step the feet forward and move the hips away from the wall, pretend or real wall. Now, if you did a pretend wall and a real wall, and you just kind of want to balance it out and feel the difference side to side, do feel free to do that. So if you feel like, okay, now you want to spin that right hand around if you did like I did before, and try that hand on a wall, wowza, see how it feels. Dominant side, yeah, feels different. Same thing with the left, switch it up. So maybe you know that that was plenty. So we might not bear our body weight on the ground on our hands. Consider grabbing your knee padding again. We'll just take this progressively. So we might be grabbing that knee cushion and come to hands and knees. And we might turn the right fingers towards 3 o'clock. We might pivot them around towards 6 o'clock. Does not mean you have to stay there. You might just try it out. Maybe we sit back, toes pointed or tucked, whichever you prefer. The heel of the hand may rise. So let's make our way back up. Release, flex the wrists. So that might just be a cluster, curl the fingers up. Some of us might enjoy bringing the back of the hand to the ground, just one hand at a time. So then we'll place the right hand so that we can spin the left fingers, maybe towards 9, maybe heading towards 6. Possibly we're sitting back, so the heel of the hand may rise. Another way to do that, less intense perhaps, sit up and just grab the fingers with the opposite hand. When you're ready to release, we can just go for that cluster counter stretch. Or maybe we're bringing the back of the hand to the floor and extending the elbow. You might just find a little bit of motion and you're deciding, are we staying at the floor? Are you heading back to the wall? So hands and knees. First variation, and I'll just repeat what we did earlier. You are welcome to stay there. Slide that left foot wide, right foot forward. We might bring right hand to the hip. Now we could build on this if you like. We might press into both hands and slide the left toes behind the right heel. Another way might be to step that right foot forward and certainly keep both hands on the ground. Maybe right hand to the hip, right arm overhead. We might decide to stack the feet. Let's cycle that top hand down to the ground. Press into a short dog wide feet. Weight in right hand, muckle fingerprints to the floor, and let that left hand slide down the right leg, wherever it wants to land, maybe around the ankle, maybe higher up. And if you want a little more, lengthen the dog. Turning, twisting, chin moving to the right. That left shoulder moving towards the upper left corner of the mat. And then releasing. Now I'm going to pivot around, but again, you don't have to do that. So we'll come into that second side. So same options, we might just swing right foot wide, left leg long. We can stick with that. We may raise an arm from there. Maybe with both hands down, we slide that right foot back. And you might be preferring the option where you step left foot forward. Or maybe we're stacking left foot on top of the right. Hand may find the hip straight up in the air, or again, overhead. We'll let ourselves come back into that short dog with a wide base. So we're taking that right hand down the left leg, moving that right shoulder towards the upper right corner of the mat. And then releasing the hand down and let the hands again walk back towards the feet. So option to hold the big toes or stand on the palms or flip the hands over so palms are face down and you're standing on the tops of the hands. Perhaps hinging at the elbows. Wrap the elbows in towards one another. Let the neck lengthen. We may find a little shift of the hips side to side. And let's rise halfway. Tent those fingers forward, rebend your knees, forearms to thighs. Take your time. You might be a little lightheaded. We were in a forward bend. We may sink the hips a little lower. When you feel ready, we'll rise up to stand. Thumbs to brow, thumbs to heart. Let's step out, wide stance. So the toes are facing the long edge of the mat. I'm going to mirror right toes turned towards a short edge of the mat. And we're lunging into that knee and re-extending, fanning the toes. Bending the knee, extend, lift, fan the toes. So just make sure we're not digging the toes and clenching the toes into the ground. We might have a little knee or hip music. Open the arms out towards a warrior two, chin to the right. How's the hip? If it feels a little pinchy, try coming up a little higher. You can always reduce the distance between the feet. We might sink in a little lower. Let's sweep the back arm, left hand to point at right knee, palm up. Right hand, palm down. Pushing the hands in opposite directions, keep lunging into that right knee, roll that right knee back to the right. It loves to cave inwards. Let's rise up, extend the leg. Now, if like me, your feet are sliding, heel toe the back leg in a bit, hinge at that front leg, pitch to the right, and try on your triangle. Maybe a hand on a block. Maybe we hover the hands, zip up those inner legs, hug heel to instep. We might just keep hands in that power pose position or in front of the heart. Let's rebend that front knee, rise up, pivot right toes in, left toes out. Bending, extending, lift, bend the toes. bending and extending. When you feel ready, when you find your spot, we'll settle in, extend the arms, look left, roll that left knee back. Right palm face up towards left knee, left palm face down towards the opposite foot, pushing the arms in opposite directions. Roll that left knee back. So we'll extend the leg. We might sink you back into it for a moment, rising back up. So if you feel like the feet have slipped, heel toe that back foot in, lunge into that front knee, trying on your triangle. Find a block if you like. Maybe hands to the heart or hands on the hips. Try not to pop out or lock out that left leg if it's really easy for you to hyperextend the leg. So we may bend the knee to rise back up, pivot all the toes to face in. Again, if the feet have been sliding, just heel toe them in a smidge, toes fan. Lift the heart. Exhale, tipping it, folding it, hands perhaps to the ground. We may walk the heels of the hands back towards the heels of the feet. We may peel the heels of the hands up, nod, circle the head. We may glide the hips a little bit side to side. So let's navigate, walk those hands a little further forward, perhaps find the blocks as we rise halfway up. Heel, toe, feet in. So we might slowly rise up a little higher, drop the knees when you feel ready, root to rise. Use a wall if you like to support the balance. Slide right foot back, bend right knee, and perhaps we hold the right foot. Try to line the right knee up with the left, but if you look down to do that, just notice, let the crown of the head rise back up. So this isn't so much about kicking back into a back bend as it is about feeling the front of that thigh. So let's release and try second side. So we'll step second foot back, bend the knee, hold the foot. Try to point the knee down. Maybe we're checking on things, but then lift the crown of the head back up. You could always play hot potato with the wall with your left fingertip. Maybe that hand comes off the wall completely. And let's release and shift it out. So if that felt like plenty and a lot, feel free to repeat that. We may come to a wall with knee padding, and you may want to bring the short edge of your mat to a wall just so we have a little bit of traction, so there's no slipping if your floor is slippery. So I'm going to use this piece of wall right here so I keep facing you, at least for one round. So take your knee padding with you. This will be more intense than the standing variation in all likelihood. It is for me. So by all means, feel free to do another round standing. So you might come to kneeling at the wall, back up to the wall. You want your knee perhaps to be able to remain on that padding. You can always just double up your mat. So I'm going to slide mine further back. Pick a side. We'll do both. If one side's more intense, maybe start with the side that isn't as intense. Completely failed to get the knee padding where it needs to go. So we want to bring that foot up the wall. Now your down knee, it can stay down. You might slide that foot forward, but if you're kind of wondering, not too much going on, it's actually more intense standing, then we're going to do it a little differently. You'll step that down foot forward. And that should turn it up quite a bit. Take your time. If it still hasn't, we might walk the hands up the front thighs, slide the hips back like your shoulders and your head might come back to the wall. I'm going to drop out of that a little bit myself because this is something you'll probably feel quite a bit tomorrow if it's new to you, or if we take it too far. So just take your time with it. Kat's gonna join us with some stretching. And then we'll think about how we're going to come out of it. So you might just rewind the same way you came into it. Drop that front knee, slide the back knee off the wall, and then perhaps we shift our padding over or just shift yourself over to bring that second foot up the wall. So my foot on the wall, by the way, the toes are pointing up towards the ceiling. And if you want to take it further, we'll navigate the down foot forward. And we can stay low. We might start to back it up, come up a little higher, maybe a whole lot higher. You might move closer to the wall than I'm going to on this side. Take your time. When you're ready to come out, if you're loving that, just what you've been waiting for, stay a little while longer. Ooh, it can also be pretty interesting to take it very slowly on the way back down. See what we may have missed on the way up. When you're ready, let that front knee come down and as gracefully as you can, slide that knee away from the wall. Now we might widen the feet, we might tuck a block under our bottom and just sit for a moment. Let the eyes rest. A lot of sensation in those thighs when they were up the wall. So bring the awareness back to the breath sensation. Feel the shape change of the ribs with the inhales and the exhales. So depending on your needs, you may want less load, so you might choose to come onto your back. We might, I'm just going to spin around so that you can see me from the side. Don't feel like you have to move. But we might come into pigeon pose. So back variation is that figure 4 that we did standing. So it might look like that, might look like right foot down. If we're choosing pigeon, left knee forward, right knee may bend out to the right. We might feel comfortable extending that right leg, wiggle the toes back. Perhaps we find a forward bend. It could be all the way down to the floor. You might want to stack yourself up on props. Take your time to settle in. Back toes tucked or foot pointed. We may rock a little to the right with the hips. We need to let off. We may tip back to the left, perhaps heel toe that left foot in or forward. So we may just be finding these little shifts, little micro adjustments until you find your perfect spot for the next few breaths. Becomes too intense, you adjust again. If it wanes, you adjust again. So know that you can stay here. You certainly don't have to make it any more intense. If it's fun for you to perhaps make it more intense, we might walk the hands in closer to the hips. And intensity can vary person to person. So maybe it's less intense for you to come up and bend that back knee, point the toes up. Center the left hand, grab that right foot again, hug the heel towards the hip. So it brings us back into the front of that right thigh. And you can release at any point. We may rock to the left. We may bend that right knee. Bring that right leg around. Now, if you're doing the figure 4 variation on your back, you're just trading sides when you're ready. So right knee forward. Left knee might come into that pinwheel position. That might be a nice variation today. Maybe we're tucking the toes, sending that leg back, kind of ratcheting that inner thigh in and to spin up to the ceiling. Feel free to grab your prop if you're leaning on a prop. We might again press back through that left foot, perhaps eventually we point. We might shift our weight a little more to the left. Be careful we don't fall off the props. And just explore those little shifts, those little adjustments. To find your perfect spots for right now. And right now changes. We may stay. We can opt to stay here. We might start to rise up first. Plant the hands, checking in, maybe that's plenty. We might bend that left knee, center right hand, reach back for left foot, and perhaps hug the heel closer to the glute. We can always back it off. We can always just release it if it's not on the menu right now. So eventually we'll release that left foot if we have it. We'll tip on over to the right, bring that left knee around with or without hands. We'll place the feet on the ground, scoot the hips forward, making our way down onto the back body. So please feel free to hug the knees into the chest, give yourself a little rock through the hips. You can back the knees away from the chest. You can move them in closer. So you're just exploring what feels right in your body. Little shifts, little movements. Now we may grab a block, fan the toes, press into the feet, hover the hips. As the hips rise, we might slide the block on its lowest setting, at least initially under the hips, check in. Depending on how you're feeling, let the head stay centered. So we're not turning our head to one side to see the device. We don't want to put a crick in your neck that way. If you have kind of a centered ponytail, just move it, shift it out of the way. So we may raise both legs, dust the feet, just in case there's any mat debris. My mat sheds quite a bit, some do. We may lift those feet up in the air, and perhaps we draw figure 8s with the sacrum on your prop. So let the prop be a massage tool. But we might find a spot where we just pause, hold, and breathe. Let the eyes rest. Feeling the shape change with each breath cycle. Very slowly at your own pace, your own rhythm. Let the knees bend. Pause at that halfway point, feeling the circulatory sensation changes, perhaps in the feet, the ankles, the lower legs. Let one foot land before the other. Maybe we're noticing the temperature of the mat, the texture of the mat, or just the pressure of the feet against the ground. Reach down with the hands to find your block. You may want to back the heels up a little closer to the block first. Hover the hips, glide the hips towards the left, place them on the ground. Let's rock the knees back into the chest, roll the knees over to the right. Please feel free to have a wedge under the legs or even between the legs if this just feels like too much pull. The arms could expand. You may feel even more comfortable with elbow bend. So again, always calibrating to your body's preference in this particular moment. Let the eyes rest. Full inhale into those top side ribs. Slow, long exhales. Taking your time to step the feet back to the mat. Press into the feet, let the hips float up just enough to shift them a bit to the right. We'll rock the knees into the chest. Maybe it's a side to side rock. It might be more of a figure eight if and when you're ready. The knees travel left. Option to use a bolster, a wedge under between the knees. The arm may be expanding, the elbows may be bending. Check in with the neck. Check in with the breath in those top side, those sky side ribs. Full breathing. You're using the breath to seek out those tense places. Maybe we were palpating with our fingers at the beginning of practice. Please stay as long as you like. Stepping, rolling knees back to center. Press into the feet to line the hips up with the shoulders. We may drop the knees in, the feet may go wide. You might be most at rest letting the legs slide long. If the low back has sensitivity, sometimes keeping the knee bend, knee tip in position can alleviate that. The arms may rest by the side, on the body, maybe overhead is most restful. The body may sigh. Let the lips and jaw slacken. Remember that you are welcome to rest here as long as you like. The breath may deepen. We may bring movement back into fingers, into toes. We may reach the arms long overhead. We may arch the back and wobble the hips. And exhale, releasing, letting it go. Bending the knees, rocking the knees back into the chest. Rolling to one side. Resting on the upper arm. Please take all the time you like.
The eyes may remain softly closed, supporting yourself back to a seat. Sitting with the breath. We may slide a hand to the belly, a hand over the heart. Perhaps sealing our practice with sound. You're welcome to join me with the sound Om. You are welcome to hum or sing any sound that vibrates for you. Deep inhale through the nose. Om. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this practice. Let me know if you have any questions.